Hello, interwebs, and welcome to the Frak This podcast. I am your milked host, Jesse Gender. I know, it's all I can think of. Because the episode we're watching is The Farm, and then I looked at that, and then I was like, I need an adjective, and then it was the only thing that came to mind, and then we just, that's just where we're at. How are you, Vera?
I'm doing okay. Hey, everyone, it's Vera. And, on top of that, you also had the very distinct pause before saying Frak This podcast, because you've had it brought to your attention that you've said Jumpgate podcast a few times.
I did. I was hoping you wouldn't notice that.
I didn't need to. The audience noticed.
Yeah, they did. How are you? What's going on? What's up?
I'm doing okay. Yesterday's was Father's Day. I got some cards.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Go me. Quick note to anyone listening. Rule of thumb, do not wish parents who are trans women happy Father's Day. I don't mind it because I'm gender fluid and I do still think of myself as my kid's father. Many trans women do not, even if they have biological kids. So don't take me celebrating Father's Day as a cue to do that. But yeah.
So, yeah.
There was good. That, and there was, I think there were 1,000 people in town for the No Kings protest here. And, understand for where I live, that is a seventh of the entire town.
Interesting. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's interesting because I went to two distinct protests. Well, three, technically. I've been going out to the Long Beach ones for the past, couple weeks. And then I just did a video on the one where I went down to downtown LA, and I did that twice. Both times the police tried to kettle us, which was fun. Good times, not terrifying at all, and flashbangs sent near me, 2 feet away from me where they, ran cavalry at people. It was actually legitimately kind of terrifying. Did a video on it. People can go look at that if they're curious about it, for at least one of the days that I was doing it. And then I went to the No Kings one. I had a party that I was going to for Dr. Aaron, one of my close friends who many people know, Dr. McDonald. She's moving out of Los Angeles. I won't say where, but she's leaving, so she had a going away party and that day. So I went to the No Kings protest near where she still lives, but will not be living by the time you listen to this, which was a kind of more rich area. I won't say exactly where, just sort of a more conservative area. So it was a kind of safer protest. It was nice. It was good. It was nice energy, but yeah, there weren't any of the cops out and stuff. So it was a nice change of pace. Yeah, it was a nice change of pace. But still it was let me put it this way. It was a nice change of pace where I'm not worried if I'm going to get shot with rubber bullets, and if I need to escape or if I'm going to end up in jail. So it was nice on that front, but I also was sort of I feel like the other one is the energy we need more of. So,
Yeah. So did you see any of the footage from Trump's parade?
No, I didn't. I specifically did not give a fuck.
Can I tell you some things about it then?
Please do.
All right. First of all, they are claiming 250,000 people were there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to try and say what I think the actual number was. I will say, lot of gaps in the crowd. They had bleachers set up, lot of empty space. They had all these cordoned off sections, to help with crowd control. There was not a crowd that needed control. There were cameras panning over the grassy areas, and you're seeing mostly green. There isn't a lot of people on there. So that's the first thing. And of course, that's the thing. Trump disputes crowd sizes anyways. So whatever.
Yeah.
Here's the detail that I love. And I know that some people are disputing this as reading too much into it, but I'm going to read this into it, and I'm going to enjoy doing so. I think there may have been some malicious compliance on the part of the soldiers in the parade. Because they weren't in step. They were out of time. They were not really marching. They were just kind of, you can even see that if you look at their feet, even the still images, they're not in lockstep. Some of them aren't even on the same foot.
Oh, yeah. A lot of the military, I know, has kind of annoyed him. I was even talking to a veteran friend of mine who's no longer in the military, but he knew people that were still in the military that knew people that were in LA. He was talking about, like, they're all bored and hungry and don't know why they're fucking there. Same thing with the National Guard. Like, they're like, what are we even doing here? We're bored and there's nothing to do. We don't have food. We don't have places to sleep. And we don't know what we're supposed to really be doing.
A lot of them haven't been paid yet either.
No, they haven't. And like, to be clear, like, I'm not a big fan of the military and the National Guard. I know, but I just to point out something of the protest that I didn't actually put in my video. When we were protesting, the National Guard was at the back of the detention center where the ICE cars were coming in, and they were sort of helping the cars come in. So the National Guard is certainly helping ICE. So fuck them for doing that on that front. That being said, the place where the violence was coming from, almost exclusively the LAPD. Was the ones actually, I mean, absolutely not a shock. They're cops. They're terrible people. So like, I'm not particularly shocked, but at least there is that distinction there. Again, not a fan of the military, regardless. So I'm not exactly, stumping for them or the National Guard or anything like that.
I'm not stumping for them either.
Fuck the police in particular.
But, thing is,
there are more, let me put it this way. There are more, I'm not a big fan of the military. There are more complicating factors for why people would join the military, why people are there, why people are doing, than the fucking police. If you're doing that, if you're joining the police, you're just a terrible fucking person.
So like, there was one other thing with the parade. There was at least one tank that was squeaking, like audibly. It was squeaking really loudly.
That's really funny.
Yeah. And again, like, some people go, you're reading too much into it. I'm over here going, I don't think I am. I think the only people who were actually in step was the marching band, because I don't think you could actually take it out of them to march in step when they're playing. But other than that, everyone was just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Well, dictator's gonna dictate. But maybe
he looked bored out of his fucking mind.
I know. That I did see. I did see a picture that he looked kind of bored at. So yeah, it's the thing too. It's like, what military parades? Like, I don't really like. I'm not even a big parade person. Periods, and military parades sound even more boring to me than usual. Like, just fascists are just boring people.
Yeah,
they
are
boring people. Like, God, at least if you're gonna control things, like, at least that's the thing. That's the thing that gets me the most. Like, I listen to like right-wing podcasts every once in a while because for like YouTube videos, just to like hear what they're saying about whatever the fuck, and I'm like, this is so boring. You bore me. It's the same 5 fucking things over and over again. I hate women. This is woke. Gay people scare me, and then I just turn my brain off. It's sad.
Yeah,
but whatever.
It's like, I'm not saying that we should have a gay dictatorship. I'm just saying that if the left wanted to take over the country the way that the right claims that we do, it would at least be a fuck of a lot more colorful.
Yeah, it'd be it'd be interesting. At least you wouldn't be bored, There was this great, I'll say this so we get into the actual episode.
Welcome to the Politics Podcast.
Yeah, right. There was a really great podcast that I would recommend that was very, very funny called Gay Future. And it was a fiction comedy podcast that was, the premise was that it was a book written by DeSantis that was his articulation of the horrible future that the left wants. But it was like, the whole pitch of it was that you could tell that there was laced like regressed homophobia, internalized homophobia throughout the whole thing. So it was like, oh, he actually kind of wants this future, but he won't admit it to himself. It was a really, really funny podcast that I'd highly recommend listening to. Little outdated now because it's DeSantis, and it was like made during the first Trump administration, but I do find it very funny.
Well, unfortunately, while he may not be nationally relevant, he's unfortunately still around, so.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. But yeah, so I'd highly recommend that. But he probably just wants to go to a farm upstate somewhere. I don't know. That wasn't a good transition.
You've been falling down on this lately.
I know. Well, we are talking about
send you to a farm upstate.
Promise? Anyways, do you want to?
Only if you're good.
Well, we are talking about the episode of season 2 of Battlestar Galactica, The Farm. But let us get to, and I actually have them pulled up, oh my God, why am I blanking? The comments for 2 weeks ago, which is the episode Valley of Darkness. Actually, technically 3 weeks ago because we doubled up last week. But one of the first comments we got here, where was it? Someone just pointed out.
I haven't looked at the comments yet today. I just realized.
Well, someone noted that I did introduce this as the Jumpgate podcast. Ethan Gyfin 4991 said, FYI, Jesse keeps introducing this as the Jumpgate podcast. I know. Yeah. We also have Dr. Wiedner. Hopefully I said that correct. Apologies if I didn't. Hope you two are well. Enjoyed Vera's local media analysis last weekend, especially since Jesse and Steve Shives provided voice work. And I'm assuming they're talking about your drag queen video, which was very, very good.
Thank you. And yes, and thank you to you and to Steve. And also to Marla Alpert, who did the heavy lifting for reading quotes from the local paper.
She did great.
Yeah,
great.
You can find her on TikTok and on Instagram under the handle The Floor is Marlava. She's great.
Super Laser 8559 said, I worked for auto insurance claims for years and handle a couple of logging truck incidents. They're every bit as bad in real life as that scene in Final Destination 2. Also for Vera, if you were ever inclined to watch another Final Destination, I recommend 5 for reasons. I haven't seen 5, so I don't know what they're talking about.
For reasons, you say.
Apparently there's something that you would like.
As opposed to no reason.
Yeah, as opposed to no reason at all. Romler says, Michael Hogan fell down a staircase in 2020 and got brain damage. Good to see him recover as much as he has. Yeah, okay. I didn't know the specifics. I knew he had some sort of injury because he's in a wheelchair now.
This is the actor who plays Ty.
Yes, Ty. So I think I might have mentioned that he might have, I think I said, he might have had a stroke or something just because I've seen him in a wheelchair and I didn't know what the reason was. But I guess he fell down the stairs and got brain damage, which sucks. But yeah, he's a great actor. Like I said, I enjoyed him a hell of a lot in Teen Wolf. And actually, speaking of that, MaroCat4749 said, hey, Teen Wolf is good. Well, seasons are good and it's fun. Cho is done dirty and it's good. Okay. I will agree. Okay. Here's my thing. I have Teen Wolf opinions. What am I blanking on the name of the monster? I think it's season 3, but season 3 is one of those seasons that split into 2 different seasons.
Oh God, I fucking hate that, man.
I know. It's basically 2 different seasons. There's season 3 and season 3.5. There's I forget what the monster is called, but it's like one of those fox spirit monsters. Forget what it's called, but that season legitimately great. Like honest to God, that season fan-fucking-tastic. I would highly recommend anyone watch it. It's just a straight-up good thing. The rest of that show, I think, is just kind of fun schlock. I enjoy it. I don't think it's kind of like, I would assume it's got the same energy as Gotham does for you, Vera, where it's campy and kind of over the top and really fun. And I also love the fact that with a friend of mine described this to me, so I'm not going to claim this, but they're like, Teen Wolf is a show where the better wolf you are is by how many friends you have. You become a better werewolf by the power of friendship. And the main character is just the best at friendship, and that's why he's the best werewolf. And that's kind of exactly the vibe of the show. So
I mean,
the last season is trash, and yes, they do Cho dirty in that show. They kill her off in a really unceremonious, dumb way. But the rest of the show is very fun. Tyler Hoechlin got his start on that, and I love him, and he's great as Superman. So yeah, there's great stuff about the show.
I did like him as Superman.
Mm-hmm. So I recommend, if you're looking for a Gotham style show to enjoy, Teen Wolf you could do worse than Teen Wolf, and season 3 is legitimately fantastic. So,
well, it seems like every show that is this is just fun trash seems to have a lousy last season.
Yeah, last season is trash.
Umbrella Academy, Gotham.
Mm-hmm.
Although honestly, Gotham's last season isn't ruinous; it's just not good.
Yeah. And Teen Wolf isn't ruinous either. It's just not good either. And also they have a follow-up movie that was made last year or 2 years ago that was not good either. So I wouldn't even recommend that one as well. So, yeah, unfortunate, but there is some good in there. Anyways, now that we've talked enough about Teen Wolf, let's actually talk about Battlestar Galactica. All right, we're getting into our recap of The Farm. We start off on Cylon-occupied Caprica, or as my notes say, Klon-occupied Caprica. Forgot the Y there. But we wake up, or we start the episode with... Yes?
I know where you're going to jump to.
Mm-hmm.
Not yet. I want to be a nitpicking bitch.
All right, be a nitpicking bitch.
So we start out with an establishing shot on this. what did it used to be? A high school or whatever it is that
I think
holed up in. It was. All right, we started on an establishing shot of that, which just has a truck, rumbling up the road, and there's all these people, out and about, milling about. They're on the roof, they're out, they're out at the primers or whatnot, and I'm just thinking, shouldn't you be hiding better than that?
Yeah.
Like, shouldn't you be trying to make this place look abandoned, as opposed to just all milling about out in the open?
Well, they have, like, trucks and shit out, like, and later on in the episode, too. It looks like a fully, like, militarized base at certain points.
Yeah, which you can't defend it like it's a base, so maybe not a great idea.
No,
I know.
Again,
this is stupid and nitpicky and doesn't matter. Don't care. My brain latched on it, so I'm going to say it.
All right, fair enough. Well, Starbuck is sleeping with Anders in almost the exact same room as Zach when she slept with Zach. It looked like almost the exact same setup too, like bed in the middle of this kind of messy ass room. Yeah. But anyways,
at least this scene plays out better than whatever the fuck the thing with Baltar was.
Yes, very much so. And Anders is sort of questioning if Starbuck will make it back to the Galactica, and she says she's very set and like, I'll make it back. And Anders sort of arguing, well, you can stay here because we could use the professional advice. We don't know what we're doing. And Starbuck says, well, you should just go away, hole up. She'll send a rescue party. And he says, what, you're really going to do that? And she says, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And, Ty. Anders starts, that would have been a whole different thing. Anders sort of gets a little mopey about like, oh, you're so mission focused, and he starts sexy times with her, but he basically was joking with her, essentially being like, lighten up, it's only the end of the world, and they have more sexy times.
Yeah, no, it's great because he's kind of getting all mopey, and then she's in like, oh, look, man, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. And then he just wraps his arms around her. He's like, gotcha. Like, This is cute. He's sweet. Yeah. This is nice.
I like it. I legitimately like Anders. He's pretty solid. So, yep. Anyways, we then cut to the Resistance fighters heading out. They're going to
although,
attack.
Can I just say this?
Please
let this be the last guy that Starbuck sleeps with. Like, we've been burning through, like, okay, Zach in the flashback in weird, awkward sex scenes, Baltar for no fucking reason. Now we're on this guy. Cool.
And also some tension with Apollo. Don't forget that.
Yeah, I know. But, like, now we're on this guy. Cool. Can we stop? Can we not have this be any more of an embedded character trait that she just sleeps with everybody? And look, I'm not here to slut shame. I'm just saying, like, she is the most independent woman in the show, and you keep doing this. And it's not done in a way like, oh, she owns it. It's like, can we stop? And this one's fine. This one's fine. But please stop.
Well, I'm sure Anders will never come back up ever again. So, yeah. Never, ever, ever, ever. Anyways, the Resistance fighters head out, and they start talking about their plan to take on a heavy raider while it's refueling so that Starbuck can use it to get off the planet. Helo's there and everything. However, as they're chatting about their plan, the Cylons start shooting at them. And as everyone runs away, Starbuck gets shot in the abdomen and falls to the ground.
The way they filmed this was real weird.
Yeah, she kind of has like this weird freeze moment.
Yeah, so the guns start being fired. Everybody else starts running away and like doing cover fire. And she's just like slowly she's in slow motion. And I didn't know what the hell was going on. My first initial instinct was like, are they giving her like PTSD in a gunfight? What the fuck is this? And then it pans down to see that she shot. I went, oh, okay, but it wasn't as impactful as I think it was meant to be because I was too busy going, what the fuck is going on?
Fuck is happening? Yeah, it's a weird moment. I knew it was coming, so it didn't land, but I remember being weirded out by it the first time I saw it too. It was like, what's happening here?
Yeah, it's one of those stylistic flourishes that just draws so much attention to itself that it took me out of the moment. And so by the time I realize what's going on, it does not land as hard as it was meant to.
Yeah, I think it goes on a little too long is the problem. I think it's one shot of it going slower probably would have worked faster.
Yeah, they do keep cutting back to her.
Yeah.
This slow-mo pan still happening.
Yeah. Well, after the opening credits, we cut back to the Galactica, and Adama comes back into the CIC, the bridge, and everyone cheers and claps for him. Baltar kind of gives a half-hearted clap. He's like,
fuck that guy.
Yeah. And Adama gives a speech. It's very short and sweet, and he says, I'm glad to be back. We don't always say what we mean to each other, and you all mean a lot to me. I want you to know that. Let's get back to work. So that's about as sentimental as Adama's going to get with everybody, which is, for him, pretty sentimental on his scale.
And look, especially after what's gone on the last few days, I'd be happy to see him too.
Yes, very much so. And he sort of whispers to Ty at one point, as I feel strange closer to the ground. So he's clearly a little bit still feeling sort of, some dissociation after the shooting. But then he starts asking about, all right, where are, the fugitives? Ty uses the word fugitives specifically. And they sort of reiterate, after they got off of Cloud 9, we don't know where they could have gone. They could have been anywhere. And Adama points out, it's she was dangerous as a symbol of resistance. But now with Lee, he sort of lets that trail off. And then he comes up with a plan. We're going to do quarantine procedures. Everyone stays isolated until we search their ship. And then once we search the ship, they have to stay away from everybody else. So that we can try and find where Roslyn is.
Yep.
We then cut into Roslyn is on the Astral Queen in a meat locker, a freezing cold meat locker that Zarek's meeting with her in. And Zarek comes in and he says that the Quorum of 12 is not entirely sure if they're willing to openly support you just yet. And Roslyn says, well, we need to make an appeal to the people. And Zarek says right up front, he's like, hey, the Astral Queen, if you make a good enough argument, will be the first ship in line to help you, to announce ourselves for you. And then Lee's all of a sudden a dick to him almost instantaneously. I'm like, come on, man. Zarek's literally like, hey, I'll support you. It'll be great.
He has done nothing but help you, dick.
Yeah.
Again, I think because the show wants to assume that we like Lee, and because Lee doesn't like Zarek, we don't like Zarek. And I'm like, I'm sorry, you're wrong.
Yeah. Zarek's like, hey, I disagree with you, but I'll help you because I believe that we need to keep the government like a civilian government. I'm against that guy. And hey, you make a good enough argument, publicly, I'll do what I can to stand by you. That seems like the normal politics.
Yeah, and Lee's all like, yeah, fuck you, dude. What the hell, man?
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird.
They're
it's
overplaying their hand with this so much.
Yeah. But Zarek also says that Zeus has returned to Olympus, which, saying Adama is back, and Lee is clearly, relieved by this. And Zarek says, all right, well, we need something personal that'll galvanize the people, like a son denouncing his father, and basically looks at Lee. So, sort of Lee being a good piece to play.
Which, again, with the way that this plays out, I feel like the show is meant to make me not like Zarek because he tried to pit Lee against his father. Mm-hmm. But I'm just watching this going, the man understands optics. What?
Yeah. Yeah. And frankly, it's we cut immediately to Lee sort of recording a speech, and I'm like, the speech is decent. And he's like, I love my father, I respect him, but in this he's wrong and must be opposed. I'm like, that seems like it would do pretty well, as a speech. Lee, unfortunately, he kind of stops it and says he can't go through with it. And also, by the way, after he says he can't go through with it, Zarek doesn't push.
Yeah.
He offers it up because he understands optics. It's a decently persuasive speech where Lee even says, I still love my dad, so it's not like he's completely, saying he's a shit person. And then when he backs down from saying he couldn't go through with it, Zarek doesn't get in his face or anything and be like, you need to do this, da-da-da-da. No. So I don't know, Zarek's just the smart one in all of this. So
yeah, this show needs to realize the character that they've actually made as opposed to the character they think they've made.
Yeah, right. I agree with him. I'm Team
Yeah.
Zarek all the way.
Yeah. I keep waiting for the show to completely have him like cross a line in that, oh, he took it too far way. But like, until they do, dude's just really intelligent about all this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. Like the big mistake he made was trusting that a bunch of murderers and rapists could behave themselves.
Yeah.
Which
like, to be fair, was the only piece he had to play at that point, too.
Like, that was who he had, so he used who he had. But, like, but that's about as bad as it's gotten. Ever since that first introduction episode, like, no, the dude's been on point.
Yeah. Anyways, as I said, Lee makes that speech, but he can't go through with it. And Rosalind says, all right, well, if you're not going to do it, I'm going to play the religious card. I know exactly what to do.
The fact that she worded it that way, to me, is a confirmation of my suspicions from before, where I said, like, I do believe she has some faith in what it is she's doing, but I don't know how much, because, like, she presented herself to the Quorum of 12 in these very stark, I know that I am appointed by God terms. And I said at the time, I'm not so sure that she fully believes that, but she realizes that she needs to act like she fully believes it because that's the better political position. So the fact that she even said play the religious card means she understands the politics of using this. Again, regardless of how much she does believe, I do believe she believes it, but she has to sell it real hard for political reasons. And I kind of like that that's now confirmed.
No, I like that as well. It makes her, again, it makes her a more fleshed out, smarter politician and character. So
yeah.
Yep. I do love that she doesn't know how to use a cassette tape, which I thought was fun. She's like, how do I use this thing?
Yeah, she's like, oh, play the religion card. She marches up. How do I use this?
It was very funny. But yeah, Starbuck then wakes up in a hospital, or at least what appears to be a hospital. And a doctor who says his name is Simon comes in and says that this is an aid hospital, that she was in surgery for 2 hours where they removed the bullet that was in her, and they didn't think she was going to make it, so she needs to take it easy. And Simon tells her that Anders brought her in, but that he died on the table because of shrapnel that nicked his aorta, and we did everything we could do. And when Simon sort of leaves, Starbuck cries.
Okay, so before this guy's first line, I just wrote down, so he's a Cylon. Like, I had no doubt immediately. Especially after he said Anders was dead. I was like, bullshit. So I knew immediately he was a Cylon. So the question for me at the time was, all right, are they going to get their heads stuck up their own ass trying to be all clever like, ooh, we bet you didn't guess when I guessed immediately. But thankfully, because like the scene that you just mentioned does end because it ends at the commercial break. And as soon as it comes back, the very first thing she's going to ask him is, are you a Cylon? So I went, oh, good. She's not dumb. And like under other circumstances, I might even say like they're overplaying her grief at finding out that Anders was dead. Except, she's been shot. She's disoriented. She's in pain. I believe that in that moment she believed it and responded accordingly.
And also probably drugged too as well.
Well, yes, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But like coming on the other side of the commercial break and a presumed time lapse, she's more gathered, and her first question is the exact question that she should have asked, which was, "Are you a Cylon?" I was just like, "Yes, ha, good." Yeah. They're not going to try and play that for a twist.
No, the episode, I mean, even the reveal that he is indeed a Cylon comes about like a little over halfway through the episode. So it's not like something that's spent on the end reveal of the episode. Like, ooh, look. Which
I'm glad for. That said, I am going to complain about that reveal when we get there.
Okay, we'll get there when we get there. Where was I? Yes. So we do come back from the commercial break, and yeah, she's doing much better, more together. She does ask if he's a Cylon. Simon says, "Well, I'm most definitely not a Cylon, but I certainly wouldn't admit it if I was." And she says, "Can I leave?" And he's like, "There's the door," but she can't get up. She says, "Frak doctors," and he goes, "Oh, so you think I'm a doctor, not a Cylon?" She says, "Jury's still out." Though she does say, "I'd expect Cylons to have better digs," and Simon gives this excuse that, "Oh, well, this is a former mental institution. It's one of the few places the Cylons have captured." And then he gives her pain meds to help her zone out.
Yep.
So, We then cut back to the Galactica, where Callie, we see, is in a cell after having shot Boomer last episode. And then we cut to the Chief making his case to Adama for Callie. He starts off arguing, hey, she wasn't in her right mind after Cobol, like we went through a lot down there. But then Adama shifts the conversation and says, did you love Boomer? And Chief, after a second, sort of admits, I thought I did. But then Adama says, when you think you love somebody, you love them. That's what love is, thoughts. And Chief sort of argues back, she was a Cylon. Adama sort of argues, a machine. Is that what Boomer was, a thing? She was more than that to us, to me. She was a vital living person aboard my ship for almost 2 years. She couldn't have just been a machine. Could you love a machine? And the Chief says, no, sir, I couldn't. And then Adama says, well, all right, Callie discharged a firearm without permission, endangering her shipmates 30 days in the brig. So, and he also has, I'll come back to this point because I'll finish out the scene. As the Chief's leaving, Adama says, you'll see her again. There are many copies. You'll see Boomer again.
Mm-hmm. So I like this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Having a character have a little bit of an existential crisis can be really meaty, or it can be really cheesy. Because if you do it wrong, then it's just taking the subtext and making it text and losing all nuance to it. Mm-hmm. But if you do it right, it can really get you into the head of a character. I think they do it pretty well here, and I think it helps that and we'll kind of get confirmation of this later. He's cracking a little in front of the Chief, but he's mostly holding it together on CIC. So I think that's what makes this compelling to me. It's not just that he's asking these questions how can we love these machines? Which I think is an interesting way to come at it, rather than asking a question, do these machines feel? Do these machines love? Which I'm sure that's a question kind of already being explored with Hilo and Tumor, and I'm sure will come up elsewhere. But I actually like this starting point better, where it's how can it be just a machine if it elicits that genuine a response from us? And there could be ways, but I like that he's starting from the human perspective rather than, dismissing whatever the Cylon did as just, well, it was just a machine, so it was just a performance. Okay, but it brought something genuine out in us. How can that be only a machine? And I think that's an interesting question for him to be asking, an interesting angle to be coming at this from. And I like knowing that he can't be asking these questions in the open. And there is very few, if any, people he can genuinely sit down and try and talk this out with. So he's stuck with these thoughts.
Yes, the Chief is one of the few he can kind of open up to a degree. Only to a degree, because they both have the relationship with Boomer. Yeah,
and even that is the degree of trying to, just trying to see if the Chief has any insight to offer, and he really doesn't. Because the Chief is kind of a bit more in denial about the implications of this than Adama is.
Yes. And again, I also really like, as you say, that point that he is coming at from the human perspective first, that it is sort of navigating what is this response that they are able to get out of us, and does that make them people because of what they elicit out of us, which is an interesting perspective and way to bring about that question in a less overt, typical way, as you said. The other thing that I do really like in this scene as well is he is having these questions about her personhood, but then he sort of immediately goes into the legalities of Callie's situation. and Callie is only getting punished for discharging a firearm, not killing somebody. Nope. So it's just a reminder overtly that under the law, Boomer was not a person, which I like that as the distinct, like he's having these questions about her personhood on an existential level and a philosophical level, but legally her personhood did not matter. It was just Callie discharged a firearm that put her shipmates in danger. And I like that juxtaposition. It's a very, it's a very smart way to bring about those ideas of like legality versus philosophy and like who is seen as a person, who is not, and how we navigate that. Because, you know, clearly if we're looking at the Cylons as like people who rised up against their oppressors sort of thing, we can see how people who are dehumanized are often like literally dehumanized and not given personhood under the law. Numerous different examples of that throughout history. So yeah, I like that as an example being brought up here.
Because the question of, you know, who gets to be a person as a philosophical question has many vectors and many answers and many avenues to pursue that. The legal question of who is considered a person is way more straightforward. It like, these are laws that obviously can't always change, but at least whatever the current state of the law is, it's usually pretty cut and dry.
Yep. Whether it be, you know, black people, you know, indigenous folks, anything like that, it's usually very cut and dry. Even So yep. And that's clearly what they're meaning. The Cylons are meant to, in some senses, evoke. In other senses, not. It's not a 1-for-1, thankfully, because I think that helps.
Well, yeah, we've talked.
Yeah, I've talked about
many a time about the hazards of going 1-for-1 on these kinds of things.
Exactly. Doctor Who. Anyways, then
Doctor Who, X-Men sometimes, like most.
I just say Doctor Who because Doctor Who is the most recent example of trying to do a 1-for-1 that did not do well.
Yeah, but. No, it did not do well at all.
Well, we cut back to Caprica with Starbuck, and Simon comes back in to check on her. And again, I really like this because Starbuck starts asking questions and starting to get information. It's like, how many patients do you have? And he sort of points out, are you interrogating me? It's like, and he goes like, we have a lot of patients, 2 doctors, 5 teachers. And she goes, well, it's awfully quiet. And he's like, well, we're dealing with a lot of acute radiation poisoning, which is fatigue and nausea and cell death. It's not pretty, but it is quiet. And you yourself are quarantined because we don't know if you caught anything, and that's where we've been having a lot of deaths. So he has legitimate answers to all of her questions, but she is still questioning it. And then then we get into Simon being a big old creep because he's looking at her vagina, and he says she has a cyst on one of her ovaries. But he says your reproductive system is in great shape. And he starts making this argument that childbearing women in the resistance, you're one of the few, it's a precious commodity to us. And Starbuck starts pushing back real hard on that. It's like, I'm not a commodity, I'm a Viper pilot. And he goes, well, you're one of the few women left capable of having children. And she's like, I do not want a child, drop it. And he's like, okay, no one's forcing you. But human race is on a verge of extinction, and potential mothers are more valuable than Viper pilots. But I know you have sensitivities. A lot of women with your history forgo having babies. And he points out that there was old fractures that she has in her hands since childhood, and basically implies seemingly correctly that one of her parents, Starbuck's parents, presumably abused her heavily by breaking her fingers in the same place over and over and over again, to which Starbuck rightfully gets pissed off and starts screaming at him to get out. So. Yep.
And what's so infuriating in a well-executed way, what's so infuriating about listening to this fucking guy. And also, I'll note at this point, I didn't write this down, but I did have the thought, okay, I don't care if you're a Cylon or not, I hope you die.
And he dies several times.
Because, spoiler, yeah, he is a Cylon. But the calmness with which he just matter-of-factly goes like, well, the human race is almost extinct, and you're far more valuable, you know, you're for your ability to reproduce. You could do so much more for us for that. It is like, I know we've kind of talked about this show, at least so far, is not really overtly about fascism, but that is a very fascist thinking because people are a function. Because when she says to him, I'm a Viper pilot, she is telling him, this is the life I chose. What he hears is, that
This
is
is my
her
function.
function. And he makes an argument of, well, here is a more valued function that you could be fulfilling. He ignores the fact that her to say I'm a Viper pilot isn't just this is what I do, but this is who I am. This is the life I have chosen to lead. All he hears is this is my function. And he goes, oh, well, don't worry. This is a better function.
Mm-hmm. Yep, very much so. And also the other element of this that I like, that was the one point I was going to bring up, but it also brings up the specific like Christofascism stuff, because we've seen that the Cylons are overtly sort of Christianity, Judeo-Christian coded in a lot of ways. And something I should also mention that other people have mentioned that I've sort of been leaving out because I forgot about it, but the original Battlestar Galactica show was heavily also based in Mormonism, and Mormonism has a very similar vibe with what I'm about to talk about, but this particular flavor that this show is hitting it with is more the Christofascism stuff. But Mormonism does code into this with its treatment of women, which is, seeing women as just baby makers. And, again, women are a function. So, again, that Christofascist element of it, but just like seeing women only for use for reproduction. Also, you could even, this wasn't as much of a conversation at the time Battlestar Galactica, this series of Battlestar Galactica was made, but very much also getting to that tech oligarch, like we need to have as many babies as possible to sort of spread our seed across the world, and like the white replacement stuff. Like that was always an underlying thing in a lot of like white supremacist thought. Like that was there, but it's certainly now seeped into like the Elon Musk techno shit as well.
Fucking like idiocracy bullshit. Like that movie's fucked up. Can we take a second to say that movie's fucked up?
Oh yeah, no, that movie is very much eugenics based. Yeah.
And it's also not funny past the first half hour.
No,
which for a comedy I actually think is the more damning thing. I don't require all my comedies to have good morals, but it stops being funny after half an hour.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, anyways, I always like side eye people who go like, this is like Idiocracy. I'm like, we could pick a better, we could pick a better one. Pick Futurama. Futurama's a better.
It's like people, bringing up their love of Fight Club. I'm not saying you are an asshole if you like it. It's just, I'm now concerned. I'm keeping an eye on you for the next fucked up thing you say.
I will say, just actually now that we're talking about Futurama really briefly, because I this came up last night. Dr. Aaron texted me. Where the hell is it? Oh God, where did it go? I need to find it. Oh no, it's really funny because we were talking about Trump's military parade.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can find it here. Oh God, 1 second. Sorry, you're probably gonna have to cut some of this out.
No, I think I'll leave it in.
You're just gonna leave it in?
I'll just let people know how long you jerk me around for.
You like it when I jerk you around. It's fun. Anyways,
only when instructed. You wait for your turn.
We were talking about earlier the Trump military parade. Dr. Aaron did text me at one point saying, this feels very Futurama. And it was a article about the parade. And it said, the military handed out drinks from sponsor Form Energy, a new beverage by Anheuser-Busch and UFC CEO Dana White in the flavor Screamin' Freedom.
Jesus Christ!
we live in a capitalist hellscape.
Drink your freedom.
Drink your slurm, everybody. Yeah.
At the very least, they got to party with Slurms McKenzie.
Yeah. I always wanted to know what Slurm tasted like. Anyways,
it tastes addictive.
Yeah, but yeah. Anyways, yeah. The Cylons have that very specific, like, Christo-fascist, like, women should be baby makers stuff, which was at the time, like, and still to this day, obviously, was a conversation in the sense of, like, Roe v. Wade and all of that stuff back then, and obviously still very much a conversation today. But yeah,
because never let it be forgotten. And I do think this episode is making this point. I'll have a couple of niggles about how it is going about it later on, but I do think this episode is making this point that reproductive freedom is important. It is liberation, because when the focus is on your ability to reproduce, and that takes priority over anything else you can do, then you are not a person anymore. You're a baby factory.
Yep. Very much so. So yeah, that is definitely what this episode is going for. All right. Well, we then cut to Adama. And he has just listened to Rosalind's message that has cropped up across the fleet. And, Adama just calls it religious crap. He says, she's talking about leading you to a promised land. And she says she will also give a signal to the fleet. All those wishing to honor the gods who will follow me back to Kobol, and, will find God's servant, talking about Starbuck with the arrow of Apollo. So yeah, he basically argues like no one's gonna follow her, no one's that stupid, and anyone who is, please let them go back on a suicide mission to Kobol.
Which, I know he's kind of saying that out of anger. Mm-hmm. It's also probably the smartest thing to do about the situation. Mm-hmm. Ty's already proven that trying to, through force, keep people in line backfires very quickly. So if a bunch of people decide to leave, let them. Mm-hmm. Because, also from his perspective, they're going to leave and be undefended. Their only defense will be their ability to jump. And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
They have
any base star there still or anything.
Yeah,
any silence came back. So
could be any number of things, and they could feasibly be very screwed very quickly. And it's not that he wants that to happen to them, but, it would be a bad use of his resources to try and force people to stay.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. Well, then we cut over to Rosalind on the Astral Queen. And she sort of asks, we have 2 minutes until we jump, and no other ship has overtly declared for them yet. But then she walks into a room with a bunch of the prisoners on the Astral Queen, and they start bowing down to her. And she says, this isn't necessary. But Aloja, the priest, says, you should give them your blessing. And she sort of whispers, this is not who I am. And the priest says, this is your path that God's picked for you, and you picked for yourself. And so Rosalind goes around and gives them her blessing. So she's definitely become a religious figure.
Yep. And is also not comfortable with that, which I appreciate. But also, I'm glad that this is here. I'm not super looking forward to the idea of people, of watching the cult of Rosalind form. I'm not super hyped for that as a extended plot thing. But within this moment, I think this is actually really important because this is what her deciding to play the religion card costs. It means that, because, it's slightly nebulous because it's never been entirely clear how religiously unified these people are. But, if we just think for a second that, I don't want to say Trump, but just if a president declared themselves to be the second coming of Jesus, yeah, most people would probably go, no. But the people who go along with it, yeah, they are going to be this kind of devoted. They are going to bow down and want your blessing and consider you a religious icon. This is what that religion card has bought you. A small number of very devoted, but very religiously devoted people. Mm-hmm. If that's not what you wanted, tough.
Yeah. Yep. And also just to point out too, just to give, because we've gotten hints of this, but to kind of explain to a degree, the way the humans' religion works essentially is just I think they all kind of have the same basic religion for the most part, and they may worship different gods, but it's all under the same sort of banner essentially.
It seems to be equivalently a difference in denomination. Because, yes. I'm not even sure I'd agree, at least with what I've seen this far. I'm not even sure I'd agree that they worship different gods. Because, the differences we've been given are, the ones from Geminon are, real fundamentalists. And they believe in the literal interpretation of the words, which implies that there are other colonies that don't take it that literally. But I don't recall too much emphasis.
Starbuck does, remember when she had in her locker, she is specifically praised, I think, to Athena. They have different focused gods that they
okay,
worship.
Yes,
at least Starbuck's denomination presumably does.
Yes, you are correct. We have seen that. I will just note that we haven't seen that anyone else has made specific prayers to anyone else. So it is not unreasonable to assume that if she's praying to these ones specifically, that some other people will pray to other ones specifically.
I think at one point someone asked her, like, what, I think Leoben asked her, I think that came up in the Leoben episode where she said, I'm from, I forget what planet she said she was from. And he said, oh, so you worship these gods. So presumably the different planets, generally speaking, worship specific, like have a general denomination that worships specific gods.
I buy that. We just haven't really seen that in
it hasn't been
practice in terms of like it actually resulting in different ways of operating.
No. And this won't become much of a deal in Battlestar Galactica, but I'll mention it here because I'm sure someone in the comments will mention it. It does become a point in the show Caprica, the prequel show, that monotheism that the Cylons believe in did exist pre the Cylons. Like, it was a thing on the planet. So it was a very minority religion, but it was a religion.
I actually kind of always assumed that just because of the lack of confusion from humans when Cylons talk about God in the singular. Like, they're not baffled by the concept. So, I always kind of assumed, like, this is a notion that exists, even if it's not in practice.
Yes, and that gets explored more in Caprica, the show, as a prequel show. So, I'll just leave that there. We then cut to, here's the reveal scene, where we then cut back to Cylon-occupied Caprica, and it reveals that Anders is still alive, and he's with Hilo, and they come back to where the shootout happened before and Starbuck got shot, clearly looking for Starbuck. And, Anders is upset, but Hilo argues, like, hey, Starbuck would understand that we left her when we got ambushed. And this is when Toomer suddenly arrives back, saying, I know where Starbuck is. And she says to Hilo, you're the father of my child. I'm not going to lose you. And they ask, where is Starbuck?
You did leave him, though. You left him for a few days. Were you waiting for the appropriately dramatic moment to show up again, you fucking drama queen?
Yeah, pretty much. And it's also lucky for her that they haven't seen any of the Sharons walking around on this planet, because I'm sure the Resistance might have just shot her.
Well, okay. I'm going to mention it now. The show is going to completely gloss over the Resistance accepting her, because it's going to be very clear in the interactions on the back end that at the very least Anders, if not everybody there, knows she's a Cylon and are just okay with it.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where the show is like, look, we don't have time to do all of that. So.
And I get it, because I'm a little bit torn on this, because on the one hand, I am kind of like, okay, if you're not going to make an actual plot out of convincing them, then it is potentially something that's going to eat up a shit ton of time just to get to where you're actually trying to get to. But at the same time, I'm like, Hilo, what the fuck did you say that possibly convinced these people? Because what I thought was going to happen is oh, he's not going to tell them. But then we have the interactions later where they clearly know. And I'm like, dude, what the hell did you say? Okay, so hear me out. She's a Cylon. Wait. Put the gun away.
Yeah, I think what would have made it work a little bit is if you at least implied that Anders was very not trusting her at all.
Yeah, which does not come across at all.
No, he seems like, it's chill. Yeah.
Everyone seems real chill with her.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird.
Yeah,
so.
Some side eye would have been well implemented.
Yes. But yeah, we cut back to the. Did you have anything about the reveal? Because you said you wanted to talk about the reveal. Was it just that?
No, I'm going to hold it because we need to get to a later point for me to explain my problems.
Okay, fair enough.
Because it needs more context.
Fair enough. Well, we cut back to what I will say, just actually before I jump in there, I will say I did like that this reveal, like I said, comes about a little bit over halfway. It doesn't overplay its hand of ooh, is Simon really a Cylon throughout half the episode? It's
which,
all right.
Good.
Yeah, and it's done kind of matter-of-factly here, too. They kind of just showed up in the scene. It's not a big, ooh, look, surprise. So, anyways, we cut back to the Galactica, or to the fleet, I should say, and Zarek says we're ready. They send the signal and jump. The Astral Queen jumps away, and we're on the CIC, and they sort of see how many will follow them. Ty says probably just 2 or 3 at the most, but that's all we get for right now. We then cut back to Starbuck waking up, and she looks and sees that she has a brand new scar on her abdomen, which is concerning to her. And Simon comes in and argues like, oh, well, we had to go back in while you were sleeping. You had some internal bleeding, and we're just about done with you, Starbuck. Just a couple more tests and we'll send you back home. Oh, whoops, sorry, I just meant the fight. I almost said home. And he goes to put her back to sleep with drugs, and she says, well, I just woke up. And he says, now you're going back to sleep. And she pretends to go to sleep. He leaves, but she had bent her tube.
She pinched off the IV.
Yes, so she wasn't going to get any drugs. So. We then cut to her sneaking out of her room, and she's sort of like limping through the hallways, and she comes upon Simon talking to what is revealed to be a number 6 model.
Yeah.
So
it took me a second to remember. It's like, okay, wait, where does she know 6 from? Then I was like, oh, right, one of the 6s almost beat her to death. Exactly. Right. So yeah, she would recognize her.
Yes. It is interesting that number 6 also calls Simon, which I just an interesting note. So that is his name.
I feel like we've
gotten like the Oben's got a name.
Yeah, but I feel I could be misremembering this. I feel like remembering that like Doral said Leoben's name when talking to 6 at one point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they call. I think some of them have names. Like I think the names. From basically just generally speaking, I think the names that we get for characters, like Cylon characters, are their actual names when they're that version of them, and then other models of that same version will have different names. So
yeah,
like I won't spoil it too much now, but Tumor and Boomer will have a different name at certain points later on in the series. So yeah.
Okay. You mean besides the ones that we've given?
Yes. Yeah, we won't have to use Boomer. That's actually been a difficult thing for me because Tumor gets a different name later on, and I'm like, I keep almost saying it. So, yeah. Anyways, so she sees this, so she knows that she is in a Cylon facility. Starbuck goes back to her room, and she prays to the Lords of Kobol to help her. It's actually, I kind of like how this is set up. The shot of her saying she wants to pray to the Lords, where she's playing to the Lords of Kobol, is shot through a mirror. And then we cut to a commercial break. And then when we come back, Simon comes to check in on her, and she's sort of snarkily reading a magazine. And he goes to check her meds and asks her if she's feeling okay. And she says, something's been bothering me lately. And when she says that, we cut and we see the mirror, and we see a piece of it is actually missing. And I like that sort of like, I mean, immediately after that, she says, I never told you my name was Starbuck. And she like stabs him with the mirror and kills him. And he says, you can't kill me, which I liked. But I at least like that like mirror. It was like a sort of like, okay, she knows she's going to stab him with the mirror. It was a good setup.
So here's where I want to talk about my issues with the reveal. And I should have clarified. It wasn't the reveal to the audience that I had an issue with. So when we saw that Anders was alive, that wasn't what I was talking about. It was the reveal to Starbuck. So I want you to imagine this. Because when she has that line, I never told you my name was Starbuck, I remember thinking, that should be badass, but it's not landing right. And I figured out why. Imagine that she had, she still pinched off the stuff. She got the shard from the mirror. Imagine though she hadn't snuck out of the room, hadn't gone down the hallway, hadn't seen 6, and had only that slip up from him, which some audiences might not have noticed. I didn't notice, actually, initially. But that she has to make that decision, I'm going to kill this man, when she has very good reason to suspect, but hadn't actually seen someone who she knows for a fact is a Cylon. The fact that she had seen 6 and knows for a certainty she's in a Cylon facility makes the Starbuck thing, the fact that he said Starbuck and she's like, that, I didn't tell you that was my call sign. It's a hat on a hat. She'd already had it confirmed. So that feels unnecessary. And it really frustrated me because when I had that thought, I'm like, but that's also the one that would have landed so much better if he just hadn't done the first one.
Yes, the only thing that I would say to that, just to play a little devil's advocate, because I always do.
You can't fucking stop yourself.
One, you could argue that she needed the confirmation that she definitely was by seeing 6, because yes, his slip up of him like saying Starbuck when she hadn't told him Starbuck, he could have gotten that information if he wasn't lying. Let's say he wasn't lying. He could have gotten that information from Anders or any of the other Resistance members that like she had hung out with over the past day or two. So, like, there's a reasonable explanation for why he would have that. It's just an extra thing. Like, it's an extra thing for her. I will admit it is one of those things, like, it's not as badass because it is a hat and a hat as, like, a reveal thing. I agree with you on that point. But it also is somewhat better than her stabbing him and saying, I saw you in the hallway with number 6. Like, I think it was just, like, the writers trying to come up with a badass thing for her to say in the moment. They could have done better. But I do get why, like, just that in and of itself wasn't enough confirmation.
So I'll reword it. We don't need both. My choice would have been to keep the Starbuck one and ditch the other one. I would also be okay with her just seeing 6 and then not trying to have a badass line and just killing him.
Or a different badass line, just something different.
Yeah. Either one is okay by itself. You don't need both. I have my opinion of which one to keep if you're only going to keep one, but you could have just kept the other one and it would have been fine too. My overall point is you don't need both.
My big thing is, like, now I want the version of this where it was just he slipped up and said Starbuck and then she stabs him and then he goes, oh, Anders told me, like, some, like, I was like, oh, fuck, oh, God, oh, no, man, oh, no.
Now, see, like, I don't need it to go there. I think it also would have said a lot about her state of mind and her conviction and her prepared to take a leap of faith that she wasn't 100% sure, but she still makes the decision, I can't stay here and I am unsafe and this is the lengths I'm going to go to leave.
For sure. I don't disagree. And I my argument, I think it does two different things. It says two different things about her. If she needed 100% confirmation and then chose to do it, that's one choice. It's one where she's not 100% sure but does it anyways. That tells us something different about her character. This is sort of in between to a degree. So yeah, I get what you're saying. Anyways, Starbuck continues escaping. And she finds a farm, for lack of a better word, of women with tubes tied up to their ovaries. So basically, quite literally, baby-making factories. And I wrote in my notes, this is the future conservatives want. Yeah. She sees one of the resistance fighters that she's been hanging out with the past few, like, episode or two, and she tries to go to save her, but she says, there's no time, cut the power, even though it'll kill you, and she says, I can't live like this, a baby machine. So Starbuck goes and destroys the machine, and it cuts out power, not only to the machine killing all the women, but also throughout the hospital.
Yeah. And I'm a little mixed on this. Mm-hmm. So, like, on the one hand, I appreciate giving agency to someone who basically says, I would rather be dead than be viewed as nothing but an incubator. Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. Something still squicked me out about it, about specifically having a woman of color.
Yeah, that was the one thing I was going to mention. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other element of it too is I can buy it if the show's just saying this is what's happening. I wasn't entirely sure how it would kill her, and also I wish there had been a little bit, like, a slightly more tension, because she says there's not enough time, and I'm like, she hasn't really been found out yet. Like, I wish, like, that we knew, like, the Cylons were actively looking for her. That would have added a little bit of time pressure on her being able to get her out. It's one of those, like, it's not, like, completely, like, I don't buy it whatsoever. I just think you could have turned the dial up a little bit more on the tension to make it better.
The line, there isn't enough time, is kind of just thrown in to gloss over stuff. It's not actually justified.
Yeah, it's like, I could buy it. It's like, oh, it's going to take, like, probably an hour to get me detangled from this thing, which you don't have. But we don't feel that, I think, as well. So, anyways, so those women die. But Starbuck...
which is the other thing that we have to kind of gloss over. I'm not sure there was a way around this, though, because...
There was other women as well, yeah.
Yeah, you kind of need the image of multiple women. But at the same time, like, yes, this one says I would rather die. Do we know if the other ones would rather die? No, we don't.
Yeah. It's kind of a rock and a hard place on that point, but yeah.
Yeah. So like, again, it's not bad, but it's a little messy.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Starbuck continues sneaking around, and number 6 appears out of a room, but Starbuck knocks her out with a fire extinguisher.
My note there was she should have kept bashing her head in when she was on the ground. Now, maybe this is too brutal for this show, but like, she takes a fire extinguisher, smashes 6 in the head, and 6 just goes down. My immediate thought was she just should have just take 2-hand wielding the fire extinguisher, just kept bashing that woman's head. Like, you shouldn't, like it's the classic horror heroine mistake. Never shoot them just once. Shoot them until the clip is empty and be sure they don't get back up.
Hey, Zombieland rules. Double tap every time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she gets out of the hospital and she runs into the same Simon, presumably just downloaded into a new body, wearing a nice suit. And he says, "Hi, Starbuck," and then immediately gets shot again, which I found really funny.
Yep. That was honestly pretty satisfying.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, no, kill this weirdo baby guy, baby desiring Elon Musk sort of motherfucker.
Yeah, fuck this guy.
Yeah, fuck him. He gets shot by the resistance team who has showed up to rescue her. The Centurions in the hospital start firing at them, but Tumor arrives with a Cylon Heavy Raider that they must have liberated, or that she liberated, one or the other.
Which they also don't explain when she picked that up.
Yeah.
Which, again, should be another reason that Anders is suspicious of her, because if he gets the background, she stole a normal Raider, and now she's in a completely different ship.
Oh, I actually, this actually helped me, because the argument, what I thought had happened was she had helped them liberate that side, like they carried out the plan that they were initially going to do and then came for Starbuck. So my thought was like, oh, they probably helped them get that Heavy Raider, which makes them trust her a little bit more, and then they
but then it begs the question, what happened to the Raider she stole?
Yeah, that is a good question. Yes.
Because we never see it again.
It's a lot of like assumptions. We don't know any of these fronts. Like this could have been one that she got herself or not. Like, who knows? Anyways, they get Starbuck aboard. Tumor is helping. She's like, "Hey, everyone, get your asses on board." That sort of thing. We cut back to the Galactica, where we learn that 24 ships, nearly a third of the fleet, left with Roslin. So, good chunk of them. So Adama, clearly upset by this, he sort of leaves the CIC and then goes to the morgue, where he looks at the body of Boomer, who clearly had an autopsy done too, by the way, which raises again the questions of like, what's on the inside of Cylons? You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, like my gut instinct is like they can't just be 100% human inside, but like we know they bleed. We know they've got a circulatory system and everything else. And
the show never really answers that question ever.
Yeah, I'm not dwelling on it because I strongly suspect the show will never address that and wants us to just take it as read that they're basically human on the inside too, because if there was some discrepancy inside, theoretically an X-ray could have done something and they wouldn't need their massive Cylon test, but I don't fucking know, man.
The show, all I will say is the show will... I say the show won't address it. It won't get into the technicalities. It'll address it in a couple ways that we'll definitely be talking about when we get there. But yeah, it's never one to be like too specific on it. So, anyways, that's all I can say for now. Anyways, Adama asks the body, why did you shoot me? Or why did you shoot? Why? He basically just asks the word why, and then he holds her head and cries.
Which again, I appreciate, especially in context of his minor breakdown with the chief. Like he can't be this vulnerable in front of anybody else, so he's doing it in front of a dead body of someone that he cared about, that wasn't what he thought she was, and who tried to kill him. It's pretty solid. good stuff.
It's very effective work. Everybody's almost did a great job there. I wrote that in my notes. So, yeah, really doing really good. Well, for our final bit of the episode, we cut back to Silent Occupied Caprica, and we get a bit of exposition from Tumor. And this is the scene you're talking about where everyone's just kind of chill with her because she's explaining this.
Because she's just casually going like, oh, well, we're trying to do this. No, we don't know how to do that, with the we being Cylons. And everyone's just like, oh, yeah, she's just talking about being a Cylon, just casual. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, that's all chill. Well, anyways, she basically explains, Starbuck is pissed off and saying, like, hey, they tried to knock me up as a Cylon kid, and Tumor sort of explains they've been trying to do that, but they haven't been able to be successful. They can't reproduce biologically, so they're trying to figure out how to do that because it is one of God's commandments, be fruitful. So again, that Christofascist, like, have as many babies as possible, aka white, like coded white babies. But
yeah, before you go any further, two things about this.
Mm-hmm.
The first is there is a great moment and a reminder that whatever she might be up to, Tumor is not fully detached from the Cylons, because Starbuck has this whole thing, like they tried to, just make me a baby machine. And Tumor kind of soft defends the Cylons. She's like, if you'd cooperated, they would have
set you up with someone you like. Yep.
Yeah. And like Starbuck justifiably has a very fuck you look. And in her response to that, I'm like, good. Because the fuck, Sharon.
I also really like that. I was going to note this in a second. Starbuck overtly names it as rape. Like they decided to rape human women to do this. Like, yeah. So she overtly names it as rape. Which I think
she names it as rape, and then Tumor basically goes, well, it wouldn't have to be rape if you just went along with it. Which, fuck off. But here's the other thing. And again, I don't know if I should expect answers to this. So they're trying to justify this entire baby-making obsession that the Cylons seem to have. And I feel safe in calling it an obsession between the farm and what they tried to do with Tumor and Helo. They're trying to justify it with, it's one of God's commandments, be fruitful. So my question, and I don't expect this to be answered, if it is, that'll be nice. Why doesn't whatever process you use to currently make your human appearing Cylons, why doesn't that count?
Interesting question. I will...
Because
that'll get explored, I will say.
If their argument is that they are alive and they are, I don't think they've made an argument that they are ensouled, or well, it's been implied because Andrew's like, yeah, we've heard it all. You have a soul, blah blah blah. So like, it's been implied that maybe the Cylons will claim that. But like, if you think you are a fully, autonomous and meaningful being, why does only this biological form of reproduction count?
I forget if this argument is made later on, so I'm actually going to hold off on that. I will say this gets explored, and I know it gets explored in a very specific way, and I think it might also get explored in the way I was about to say, that. But I don't, there's actually... I'm already saying too much. That's already saying too much. There are numerous reasons and motivations behind what the Cylons are doing, is what I will say.
Okay.
That we will get to at a later date. So if it doesn't get explored, we can talk about it. But yeah, what you're talking about does get explored, at least in one way. I won't say if it doesn't another way for sure or not. Anyways, the one thing that did make me groan a little bit, which was Sharon says, well, they have this theory that they were missing love, and that's makes...
First of all, Helo says it. And second of all...
Yeah, and presumably it worked.
Fuck off!
She is preggers, because Helo and her loved each other.
Fuck off!
Mm-hmm.
God. Jesus.
Yeah.
Look, here's the really frustrating thing. You could, in theory, make a thematic thing out of that. I'm not expecting them to. I expect this to be a tossed off line as to why it only worked the one time. And if that's all it ever is, that's fucking, I hate that.
I will say no more.
So let me, I am not saying the show is saying this. However, I am going to note that variations of you only get pregnant if you want it, or you only get pregnant if you're in love, have been made in the past and have been used as arguments to not provide abortion services to rape victims, because men argue that, well, if she doesn't want it, then it won't work. And just the proximity to that argument already fucking grosses me out. And again, I don't think the show's saying that, but it is in proximity with that. And that I find kind of fucking gross. Especially because it is, at least at present, being framed as a good thing, because we are, at least at current time, being asked to feel more or less positively towards tumor. So, gross.
Yes, I'm trying to look up something for the spoiler minute because I want to confirm something before I say anything on this. Well, my computer is not loading, so fuck it. I will talk about it when and if it ever comes up later on. Because it's my internet's just spinning its wheels right here. Anyways, Toomer says to Starbuck, well, the Cylons know who you are, Starbuck. You're special. Leoben told you that. You have a destiny. They know who you are, essentially.
Yeah,
so.
also not a fan of the destiny shit either, but that doesn't gross me out. That just bores me.
Yes. Anyways, she also points out what's the second scar Starbuck has is for, and Starbuck says, I don't want to know. And they learn that they have hundreds of thousands of women at these farms. And Starbuck wants to stay and liberate farm after farm after farm. Understandable. But then Anders sort of convinces her, says, hey, that's not why you came to Caprica. And he goes and has this fun little hiding spot underneath a barrel in this like water pit that they kind of have there where he was hiding the arrow, which I thought was kind of fun.
Here's what I found really interesting. So the shot of him moving the barrel, because it's like it's the camera's underneath the barrel and he moves it. So it's like briefly the shot's in darkness and he moves this thing off and the camera's looking up. That shot was used because, they'll do that thing where they take images from this episode and do them during the opening credits. That shot was used, but in reverse. So it was like he was placing it on top of the camera during the opening credits montage. I thought that was real clever. Yeah, because it gave it a completely different feeling. I think it might have actually even been the last image from the episode before they went to the titles. Is like this finality of boom, placing it down. And it just has a completely different meaning because it's in reverse.
Yeah, no, it's fun. Well, yeah, they have the hiding spot of the arrow, and he says to her, go find Earth. And, Starbuck is like, well, what you said, you needed professional advice. He said, we'll muddle through. We managed so far. And she says, they'll kill you. And he says, you'll die here. And he says, lots of people die here. And I'm going to take out every one of these farms before I do. And then Starbuck says, hey, I'm not going to leave you here. I said I was going to come back and you can hold me to it. And she gives him her dog tags and they kiss. And she says she's coming back. And he tells her to be safe. And then Starbuck heads off to Hilo and says, let's go home. And they take off in the Heavy Raider, leaving Anders behind.
This scene walked right up to the line. It walked right up to the line of overcooking this connection between her and Anders. If she'd said the words "I loved you," I would have fucking lost it. Thank God she doesn't. I'm like, you're. I say walked up to the line. This is pushing the. I could feel the pressure. It's pushing right on my limit for banking too much on this. I'm like, okay, I'll let it go because there was a thing that you could have done that would have pissed me off, and you didn't do it, so I'll let it go.
I will actually even argue, usually I'm on the side of the actors in a situation like this. I actually will say, I think the writing of this was just fine. and either the director or the actor overplayed it too much, because it, like, the lines of, like, you know, it could be played as like, hey, they have somewhat of a connection, but she says, like, I made a promise, I come back. Like, that's a very Starbuck thing of, like, I said I was gonna do something, I'm gonna do it. And so she plays that up. But the scene is kind of played, whether it was the actor's choice or the director's choice, to, like, real play, like, this is very heart-wrenching, and they're very upset to be leaving each other. I think it's a little overplayed, and it's playing it a little bit too romantic-y. So I would actually argue that the writing of it is actually fine. And maybe it's in the script that it should be played this heavily, but, like, I think just from a dialogue level, it's fine. I think either the actors or the directors slightly overplayed it.
I'd actually be inclined to blame the editor, because I bet you there are alternate takes that are more toned down than this.
That's also possible too. So yeah. So someone I think overplayed their hand, whether it be the director, actor, or editor. Possibly the writer. The writer may have, like, in the script notes said to, like, overplay it, but someone did. But the actual dialogue did.
But it wasn't as overplayed as I thought it was going to be, so I am just going to move on.
Yes. Well, that is the episode. Did you have anything you wanted to say about that scene before I do spoiler minute?
No.
All right, I have a spoiler minute. So for the next 60 seconds, if you do not want any spoilers, just like Vera does not want any, you can skip ahead 60 seconds like Vera is going to do in real time by giving me 60 seconds on the clock.
And go.
So the only major thing that I kind of wanted to bring up, because I was alluding to it there, was the discussion around whether, like, oh god, now I'm blanking. But the exploration of whether the Cylons want to procreate because God says be fruitful. The one that I know gets explained is, like, Cavill starts wanting to do it because he wants to, become more than human, and is upset that they couldn't procreate based on, the final 5 Cylons not giving them that ability and messing with that. I think there's also more to it, but I don't remember. I think there might have even been a specific reason that the final 5 said that they couldn't. That I think, like, Ellen at some point says why they didn't give them the ability to procreate. I don't remember specifically why, though, so I'm not entirely sure if that's going to be explored more from a religious angle, but I know Cavill has his reasons, but I don't remember if there is more explanation of the religious side of things. That's what I wasn't sure of when I was talking with Vera. All right, what did you think of the episode?
It's pretty good. Like, I have my nitpicks. A few things are a little bit messy, but no, like, the main core of, like, introducing, like, this is our first new Cylon model since the fucking miniseries.
Mm-hmm.
Introducing a new Cylon model, giving him a very distinct function and personality separate from anybody, making him a doctor, making him this fucking weirdo baby obsessive, is nice and distinct from everybody else. And I think they did a good job. I have my complaints about the reveal for putting a hat on a hat with it, but I think they did a good job at balancing, how quickly Starbuck was asking the question, are you a Cylon? And the fact that they didn't try and play it like an end of episode twist and insult the audience's intelligence as if we weren't going to immediately fucking suspect. I think it respects the audience's intelligence and responds accordingly to the fact that a good chunk of the audience is going to immediately be suspicious of this guy anyway.
Yes.
And and the progression with Rosalind and all that was good. And Adama is going through some stuff, and Edward James Olmos plays it real well.
Yeah. No, I will admit I was very worried about rewatching this episode, because I remember this episode specifically as, like, oh, this is the baby making factory episode. Like, that's how I remembered it. And I'm like, oof, that could go real bad for an early 2000s show. Like, I never thought that the show was like, pro controlling women's bodies or anything like that. But, like, this is a show mostly written by men. Not all of it. I don't even know if this episode specifically was. Jane Espenson, I know, is one of the writers on the show. I don't know if she wrote this episode or not, but this is a show run and mostly run by men. So it's like, ooh, they could get that real wrong and be kind of real bad with it. But actually watching this, I'm like, no, this is handled pretty well. They nail that sort of fascist and, again, specifically Christo-fascist element of it very well. Again, I agree with you that there's nits to pick, but on the whole, this works very, very well, and the Rosalind and Adama stuff is also pretty strong. So, yeah, I like this episode as well, which, again, I will be honest, I expected to be more icked out by this episode than I thought than I ended up being, and being like, no, this is actually really well handled, so. All right, well, all that's being said, anything else, Vera?
Don't think so.
All righty then, stuff time.
Stuff! If you want to find my stuff, you can look for Council of Geeks. Patreon pays the bills. YouTube has new videos every Saturday on whatever I feel like talking about. We are now several weeks ahead, so I definitely have no fucking idea what'll be coming out around the time that this episode goes live, so don't at me. But you can also find Council of Geeks content by looking for Break Room of Geeks, which is my secondary channel where I ramble about whatever I have watched, listened to, read, or played lately. I also occasionally put stuff up on Blue Sky, all under Council of Geeks. That is the geeky stuff. But then, there's the spicy stuff.
Spicy stuff.
And you can look for Vera Wild. Wild is spelled W-Y-L-D-E. And you can find increasingly spicy content on YouTube, TikTok.
I also just want to at least call out, because I brought it up. This episode was written by someone named Carla Robinson, who is a woman. Should be pointed out. Also, weirdly enough, she has only ever written. She wrote 27 episodes of Battlestar Galactica. So this is one of numerous episodes she's written of this show. Mm-hmm. And then also her only other credit. She has 27 episodes of Battlestar Galactica, no other credits except for one episode of a kids show called La La Loopsy. So it's Battlestar Galactica and La La Loopsy. It's an interesting career progression, and then it has nothing after that, whether or not she left Hollywood or changed her name or passed away. I don't know, but that's interesting. Anyways, you can find my stuff at Jesse Gender on YouTube, where I have video essay style stuff. By the time you listen to this, I will probably be back from filming my episode in New York City for Subliminal, so I will be working on an episode, a video about the Ferengi and Star Trek, so look for that video essay coming in the very near future. Really proud of that one. I have a secondary channel called Jesse Gender After Dark, where I do news, reviews, reactions. I am going to be reviewing Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which should be up starting right around the time you're listening to this, as well as Peacemaker, whenever that comes out in the next few weeks after that. I also have, I'm on Instagram and Blue Sky. I'm also on Nebula, the streaming service that will house that show Subliminal that I am directing an episode of. That'll be coming out later this year, early next. Also, my movie Identities, which you can find on there. And then I also have a Patreon that helps me pay my bills. So if you want to support me doing what I do, help me feed my cats, you can support me over there on Patreon. Anything else, Vera?
Nah.
Alrighty then. With all that being said, I hope you all live long and prosper.
Be seeing you.